The Cincinnati Bengals are entering an offseason that could really redefine their future.
Yeah.
They've got this dynamic wide receiver duo in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase,
Right.
but keeping both of them alongside a quarterback. With a mega deal like Joe Burrow, it's going to be a challenge.
It is.
It's the classic NFL dilemma, balancing talent with the salary cap.
It really is a balancing act. And the Bengals have some tough choices ahead. Let's start with T. Higgins.
Okay.
He recently parted ways with his agent, which often signals a shift in negotiation tactics, especially since he's playing under the franchise tag right now.
This move definitely adds another layer of complexity to the situation.
Yeah.
He's clearly seeking a long-term deal, and now we're left wondering if this agent switch is a move to try to secure more lucrative contract.
It's certainly a possibility. Remember, franchise tags are essentially one-year deals designed to buy teams time while they work out a long-term agreement. But players, especially those performing at a high level, often prefer the security and guaranteed money of a multi-year contract.
And Higgins has certainly been performing, even playing as the WR2 next to Chase. He's put up some impressive numbers.
He's been remarkable. Over 300 catches, over 4,200 yards, and 29 touchdowns. In just 66 games, that kind of production speaks for itself, and you can bet he's looking for a contract that reflects his value.
Now, to understand that value, in the context of contract negotiations, we need to consider something called market value.
Right, a player's market value is essentially an estimation of what they could command on the open market based on their performance, position, age, and other factors. Sites like Spotrac use complex algorithms to calculate these values, taking into account recent contracts signed by comparable players.
So in Higgins' case, Spotrac estimates his market value to be around $18.8 million annually over a 5-year deal. That's a significant chunk of change, especially when you factor in what the Bengals are already committed to paying Burrow.
Absolutely. And let's not forget Jamar Chase. He's eligible for a contract extension soon. And given his trajectory, he's likely looking at a deal that could reset the wide receiver market.
We're talking potentially record-breaking numbers here. So we've got Burrow with his mega deal, Chase potentially commanding a historic contract, and Higgins looking for a deal worth nearly $20 million a year. How did the Bengals even begin to navigate this financially?
It's going to be incredibly challenging. The Bengals will have to get creative with contract structuring, potentially backloading contracts to minimize the initial cap hit. But that just pushes the problem further down the road.
It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. You have to make some very difficult decisions.
And those decisions are made even more complicated when you consider that the Bengals' defense also needs some serious attention.
They can't afford to neglect their defense while trying to retain their offensive stars. They need to allocate resources to improve their pass rush. And secondary, perhaps even consider cutting or trading players to free up cap space.
They've got to weigh the immediate loss of a player against the potential long-term gains. The Bengals are in a situation where every decision has a ripple effect.
This is what makes the NFL offseason so fascinating. The strategic maneuvering, the contract negotiations, the tough choices. It's like a high-stakes game of chess.
It is, and the Bengals are holding some very valuable pieces. But the question remains, can they make all the moves necessary to keep those pieces together and build a true championship contender?
And that's where we'll pick things up in part 2. We'll delve deeper into the financial gymnastics the Bengals might have to employ and explore the potential ripple effects of their decisions.
We were discussing the Bengals' challenging situation, attempting to keep their core offensive players together. Let's break down the specifics of what they're facing.
Okay.
We'll start with Joe Burrow's contract, because that's a major piece of the puzzle.
It's hard to imagine the Bengals without Burrow at the helm. He's become such a pivotal part of their success. What does his contract look like in terms of cap hit for the coming years?
Well, the structure of these mega deals is often complex, with various clauses and bonuses. But in simple terms, the Bengals need to be very mindful of the cap hit each year. It's not just about the total value of the contract, but how it's distributed over time.
So even though he signed a massive contract, it doesn't mean the Bengals are immediately strapped for cash.
Exactly. Teams often try to backload contracts, meaning the bigger cap hits come in the later years. The idea is that the salary cap will likely increase, making those larger hits more manageable down the line.
But doesn't that strategy create issues for the future, especially when you consider they also need to extend Chase and potentially re-sign Higgins?
It's a calculated risk.
Yeah.
And it's why the Bengals are in such a tight spot. Let's say they backload Burrow's contract to free up some space now. That might help them squeeze in a deal for Higgins. But then the really big challenge arrives: Jamar Chase's extension.
Chase is expected to command a top-of-the-market contract. How are the Bengals going to handle that, with Burrow's larger cap hits looming in the later years?
That's the multi-million-dollar question. They might try to use similar tactics. signing bonuses, roster bonuses, and other mechanisms to manipulate the timing of the cap hits. But it becomes increasingly difficult to juggle those numbers when you have multiple players on mega deals.
So are we talking about a situation where the Bengals might have to choose between keeping Higgins now or keeping Chase in the future?
It's not quite that black and white, but it does highlight the tough choices they face. They can let Higgins walk, hope to find a cheaper replacement, and bank on having enough space for Chase's extension. But that's a risky strategy, especially considering the chemistry Burrow has developed with both receivers.
That chemistry is crucial, and it's something they've built over time. To just dismantle that for the sake of cap space seems like a gamble.
It certainly is, and it underscores the complexity of the situation. It's not just about dollars and cents. It's about team dynamics, player morale, and the overall impact on the team's performance.
Plus, they can't forget about the other side of the ball. The Bengals' defense needs work if they want to be true contenders. How does that factor into this financial equation?
It adds another layer of difficulty. They need to find ways to bolster their defense. While managing these massive contracts on offense, it might involve releasing veterans, restructuring other contracts, or getting very creative in free agency in the draft.
It sounds like they're walking a tightrope,
Yeah,
trying to balance the needs of their offense with the demands of their defense.
it's a balancing act for sure, and there's no easy solution. Every decision they make will have consequences, both in the short term and the long term.
So how do other teams approach similar situations? Have we seen any creative solutions or successful strategies
Yeah.
that the Bengals might be able to learn from? We were talking about how other teams have navigated similar salary cap challenges.
Uh-huh.
There must be some lessons the Bengals can learn from other teams who have faced this three-star conundrum.
There are a few interesting case studies we can look at. The Kansas City Chiefs are a prime example. They managed to keep Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill together for a few seasons, winning a Super Bowl in the process.
But didn't they eventually have to trade Hill due to salary cap constraints?
They did, and that's a crucial point. Sometimes, even with the most creative contract wizardry, you reach a point where difficult decisions are unavoidable. The Chiefs decided to prioritize Mahomes and Kelce, betting on their ability to adapt and find new weapons.
And it seems to have worked out for them. They won another Super Bowl without Hill. So the Bengals might be in a position where they have to make a similar sacrifice.
It's possible. They might decide that keeping Burrow and Chase together is the best path to long-term success. Even if it means parting ways with Higgins, it's a tough call. But sometimes you have to make those strategic decisions for the greater good of the franchise.
But there's also the intangible aspect of team chemistry and player morale. Higgins has expressed a desire to stay in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
How much weight should the Bengals give to those factors?
Those factors are certainly important. You don't want to create a locker room filled with disgruntled players.
Right.
And remember, Joe Burrow is a vocal leader who values those relationships.
He's made it clear that he wants to keep this core group together. That must carry some weight with the front office.
Absolutely. Burrow's opinion holds significant value. He's the quarterback, the face of the franchise. The Bengals want to keep him happy and create an environment where he can thrive.
This whole situation is so intricate. It's like a giant puzzle with all these interconnected pieces. Player contracts, team chemistry, future aspirations. It must be incredibly stressful for the front office.
It is. These are the types of decisions that can make or break a franchise. They have to weigh all the factors, assess the risks, and ultimately make the choices they believe will give the Bengals the best chance to win.
Do you have a gut feeling about how this will all play out? What's your prediction?
Predictions are tricky, especially in a situation as fluid as this. But if I had to guess, I'd say the Bengals will try their hardest to keep all three stars. They'll exhaust every avenue, explore creative contract options, and perhaps even make some difficult cuts elsewhere to free up space.
It sounds like a high risk, high reward strategy.
It is. But with the talent they have on offense, the potential reward is enormous. They have a chance to build something truly special in Cincinnati, a dynasty in the making.
And for Bengals fans, the offseason is going to be a roller coaster of emotions.
It will be. They'll be glued to every rumor, every negotiation update. The stakes are high, and the anticipation is palpable.
Oh, I guess we'll all be watching with bated breath to see how this saga unfolds. The Bengals have some tough decisions to make, but one thing's for sure, the future of the franchise hangs in the balance.
It does. And those decisions will have a ripple effect for years to come. This is a pivotal moment in Bengals history, and it'll be fascinating to see what path they choose.
Bye-bye, and see you in the next video.